So just a quick disclaimer before this video begins. I did originally upload this video with Wallace and Gromit footage, but unfortunately YouTube and Aardman Animations copyright claimed the absolute living crap out of it. So which is why instead of that footage, you're just going to get some background gameplay of Wallace and Gromit, The Curse of the Were-Rabbit for the Xbox and PlayStation 2. So yeah, sorry I couldn't include the actual, Wallace and Gromit videos. But, copyright's a bitch and then you die. Enjoy anyway. Welcome back to another commentary video on the Brad the Mouse channel. Now, we all know that 2022 is approaching incredibly quickly, and that thought alone is terrifying to me. So in order to contain what little sanity I have left, I've decided to make a video on one of the most beloved franchises to ever exist in the UK, and of course, that is the Wallace and Gromit series. Developed by Aardman Animations and directed by Nick Park, Wallace and Gromit follows the story of a man who has a knack for creating contraptions and inventions with an intense cheese addiction, whilst also following the story of his dog, Gromit, who often bails Wallace out of the problems he lands himself in, or investigates them more thoroughly. Now, one of the main selling points for the Wallace and Gromit series is how every single entry is stop motion. Even high-budget films such as The Curse of the Were-Rabbit, everything you saw on screen in terms of Wallace and Gromit was always handmade, animated, and lovingly crafted to create an entertaining atmosphere and experience. Even though the actual Were-Rabbit was created via a tiny endoskeleton and clay model facial expressions, Aardman Animations were incredibly dedicated to their craft. But how did this garner such a massive amount of worldwide attention over the years? Well, let's go back to the very beginning. Their first major hit release was as far back as 1989 through a short film known as A Grand Day Out, in which the duo build a rocket ship to get cheese from the moon, whilst running into various shenanigans along the way. Now, not many people know this, but that film had an impressively tiny budget. Whilst most animated feature films go into the 100,000 zone in terms of budget, this animated feature was fueled by a mere £11,000, which is incredibly impressive in my opinion. This small feature film would go on to spark the eventual uprise in the duo's popularity, being nominated for Best Animated Short Film in 1991, but unfortunately coming up short against Creature Comforts, another product by Nick Park. Fast forward to 1993, the second Wallace and Gromit film, called The Wrong Trousers, would release and continue to further spark the duo's popularity. The film consisted of Wallace letting out the spare room in order to settle debt, using his patented techno trousers in order to safely redecorate the ceiling and walls without issue, before leading him to unknowingly letting the room out to a wanted penguin by the name of Feathers McGaw. Gromit starts to feel replaced by Wallace's growing relationship with Feathers and runs away from home, all according to McGaw's plan to use Wallace and his techno trousers in order to rob the museum's diamond. Wallace is tricked into wearing the wrong trousers. McGaw takes advantage of this and eventually steals the diamond. Gromit returns home to save his master, leading into an iconic chase scene before McGaw is contained and handed in. The reward money helps Wallace settle his debt, and Gromit moves back in. This short film would go on to be incredibly successful, garnering it an Academy Award for Best Animated Short Film. Wallace and Gromit's rise to fame was especially noticeable both in the UK and in the US after this film debuted, and things were only looking up from there. 2 years later, A Close Shave would be released, and once again become another Wallace and Gromit masterpiece, garnering yet another Academy Award for Best Animated Short Film. Wallace and Gromit started their own cleaning company and happened to meet a wool shopkeeper known as Wendeline, and he quickly develops feelings for her. Her dog, Preston, drives around the sheep who are used to make the wool until one sheep escapes and retreats into Wallace's home in the middle of the night. The duo wake up and discover him, placing him into the Knit-O-Matic to clean him up and knit a sweater before promptly naming him Sean. If that name is familiar, then that's because it's the very first time the character Sean the Sheep has made an animated appearance before his spin-off series and films. Anyway, Preston disobeys Wendeline and locks her up in the lorry after Wendeline protests against the rustling. Wallace and Gromit give chase until Wallace himself ends up in the lorry, while Gromit follows from the air. Sean escapes the machine Preston traps them in, revealing the group's location to Gromit by flashing neon signs. Gromit attacks Preston, landing him in a Knit-O-Matic, which revealed that Preston is actually a cyber dog created by Wendeline's father for good. After a struggle, Preston is promptly shoved into the dog food making machine, destroying him and putting a stop to the madness. Afterwards, Wallace invites Gwendoline inside for cheese before she declines due to allergy. She says her goodbyes and leaves, never to be seen again by Wallace. It was around this time that the duo got so popular that cheese brands and even merchandise began to roll out, marking these two as insanely popular characters during the 90s. Fast forward to 2002 and a short series following the release of Chicken Run, known as Wallace and Gromit's Cracking Contraptions, was released. These were essentially just Wallace inventing different contraptions and watching them work either well or disastrously. These shorts didn't garner the same kind of attention as the short films did, but they still retained the same charm that the short films had. However, in 2005, the very first full-length film, known as The Curse of the Were-Rabbit, was released. This followed the duo investigating the massive pest problem, rabbits specifically, during the upcoming vegetable competition. Now, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail for this one, since it's the full feature film, and I think it's worth watching if you're interested. However, I will say this though, this film retained the same amount of charm that Wallace and Gromit had for almost every character, even when they weren't on screen. Victor, the antagonist, was hilarious at every given moment. The priest was always overdramatic and over the top, which fit the Wallace and Gromit universe very nicely. Even Lady Tottington was the fine line between endearing and emotional. So much worked for this film, and it only skyrocketed the series. From games to advertisements to merchandise and even branded cheese, the duo were a staple for British animated entertainment, and all over the world even, until... Peter Sallis, the voice of Wallace, would star in this last ever Wallace and Gromit short film known as A Matter of Life and Death in 2010. I personally garner this one to be the absolute worst Wallace and Gromit short film, mainly because serial killers and a murder mystery really does not fit the universe of Wallace and Gromit, and I think it clashes very strangely with the idea of Wallace being this inventor of contraptions with some naivete. Anyway, to sum it up briefly, this woman's a serial killer who kills bakers because she blames them for a weight gain, and that somehow involves Wallace, apparently. Okay. Anyway, Paila, I think her name was, tries to kill Wallace and fails numerous times before she dies, and that's it. It was definitely around this time when the Wallace and Gromit series was starting to lose its popularity in the spotlight, with every year making the duo more and more irrelevant as time progressed. They would sometimes be seen during UK advertisements, but there was never anything that brought the duo back into the sunlight. And then, on June 2nd, 2017, Peter Sallis had passed away peacefully while surrounded by family. Thank you for your performance and your charm, Peter. I hope you're at peace. Are Wallace and Gromit completely irrelevant now? I would say yes and no. Yes, there won't be any more Wallace and Gromit products that can recapture the magic and charm the older products are full of. No, because there are a few surviving aspects of the series. For example, the infamous Gromit mug has internet spread popularity due to its presence as a meme. Hell, even I have one. They even released a limited edition golden Gromit mug, surprisingly enough, so I guess they're embracing the meme. Outside of that though, I just don't see anyone talk about this series anymore, and to be honest, I think that's alright. A Matter of Life and Death shown us what happens when you try and push a series into relevance again. I'm honestly glad that Nick Park and Aardman Animations are kind of letting the series rest on a good note to work on other projects. You have to bear in mind though, this series has been around since 1989. That's over 30 years ago. The series has aged gracefully into the 2000s era, and is filled with nothing but timeless classics. If you haven't watched the Wallace and Gromit series yet, and this is your first look at them, I highly implore you to watch them all. Have a sit down, grab some tea and biscuits, and just go on a massive watching spree and see the magical charm and enjoyment that the Wallace and Gromit series has granted us for over 30 years.